Hi, and welcome to Animalia the Podcast. I'm Natasha, and thank you so much for tuning in. With the stray population being what it is, adopters are in high demand, but so are fosters. Imagine rescuing a box of newborn kittens. They can't be housed at a shelter. They require round-the-clock care, feeding every couple of hours, and very specialized attention. Or imagine being a shelter dog for a few years and needing to experience what living in a home is like. That's where fosters come in. But the worries don't stop there. After you've cared for these babies and made sure they're growing up happy and healthy, they still need to be adopted. So how do you, as a foster, find a good home, and how do you let go of these babies? Well, as my guest this week tells me, sometimes the fosters turn into fails. She's the full-time mom to 6 foster fails and the creator of Kitty Whiskerer on social media. Please welcome to Animalia, Amanda Ahloy. So I'm speaking today with Amanda Ahloy, who was recommended to me by Dr. Straker, who was a guest on Animalia before. And she was recommended as a cat fosterer extraordinaire. But I wanted to hear from you, Amanda. What was your background and history with animals?
All right, so I've always been passionate about animals for as long as I can recall. I've always been surrounded by dogs, cats. I had rabbits, I had a guinea pig. Basically, any four-legged furry friend, I would always try to be around, care for them. So recently I've been trying to make more effort to do more for animals, cats specifically.
And you mentioned earlier that you had the childhood dream, as many of us did, to be a vet.
Yes. Oh gosh, for I don't know, maybe since I was about 4 or 5 years old. Again, as long as I can remember, always had a dream of becoming a vet, but sciences were not my forte. But I'm still trying, to volunteer, just to do things, anything that I can to continue to care for animals, be around them.
What prompted you to start the fostering? Because I know a couple of people who foster, one of which is Kimlin Harlal, who's also on the podcast. She says she's been doing it, ever since, but she has kind of married the fostering with a business of cat sitting. So how did you get into it?
To be honest, I only recently started fostering cats. This would have been back in May. But just to backtrack a little, I think it all began last year, December, where I'm currently living. There were a lot of stray cats, kittens that would come around our apartment and, started feeding them, letting them inside the apartment. And then with the onset of COVID, I think that's what kind of triggered off the desire to foster. I was working from home. I had, a lot more spare time that I could give to these animals. So I began fostering through TSPCA. I saw on Facebook, they were reaching out for fosters, anybody that can assist with kittens, cats. So, I decided, let me give it a try. And that's how my journey of fostering began.
And you've had a few foster fails, I understand, as well, along the way.
Yeah. Yes, a couple, quite a number of them, to be specific, 6 of them. So these cats all, yes, they all started off as fosters. My husband and I decided, okay, we're just going to foster, not adopt. And one of the challenges that we experienced, one cat in particular, was trying to find her a home. And we continued fostering her, I want to say, for about maybe 2 to 3 months. And, we just did not find the right fit for her. And, well, lo and behold, we made the decision to adopt her. And that's just one out of our 6. So, we have a trend here going on, but hopefully, 6 is it for now. Just focusing now on the fostering.
And how are your own cats? How are they with the fosters? How do you manage that relationship?
I have to gradually introduce them to each other. Of course, that they can sense and they know when, a stranger is now in the apartment. They become very cautious. They, kind of tend to give a little growl as well because they know that someone else is here, but it just takes a lot of patience. I want to say that maybe after a couple of days, my cats then start to become a little friendly, sniff around, at the fosters, but it's always been a positive outcome. They always get along, perfectly well after. And I think that's why we ended up adopting 6. We just saw the love and the care that they all had for each other. And it was a bit difficult to, split them up, So, yeah, they're all happy together now.
Do you have any now currently, and how many?
Yes. So 6 that I have that are mine, and currently fostering 2 kittens from TSPCA. I've had them for 2 weeks now. They're a bit undersized, so just trying to give them a bit more attention and care, until they become a little bigger. I don't think they're quite ready to go off to a new home as yet. So my main focus is with those 2 little ones right now.
And do you generally tend to foster kittens or teenagers or adults?
I won't say that I have a preference. I've fostered cats that were, about 2 years old. I think that's my eldest cat that I have right now. I've had teenage cats as well. 2 of them that I have right now, I would say are teen cats. But I've dealt quite a lot more with kittens, I'd say.
And have you rescued as well as fostered?
I have not actually done the rescuing myself per se, but I've had people reach out to me asking for assistance. I've dealt with 2 little kittens, to be exact, that were dumped in a drain. So I met with the person who rescued them, took them in and cared for them. They got their vaccines, everything, got older, found them homes. Actually, one of the cats that I've adopted as well, Dustin, he's my sweet little tripod cat. Someone reached out to me as well and, just asking for assistance. And to be honest, when I heard him, cry out and meow, my heart just melted and I had to try and assist as best as I could. I never had experience dealing with a special needs cat, but I took on the challenge. And well, yeah, now he's happily ever after living with me.
That's the family. I actually have an experience with a tripod as well, and it is amazing how well they adapt though.
Adapt, yes, of course.
This was a cat that was a stray that was around my workplace at the time, and I was feeding him and playing with him, and then one day I showed up and one of his legs was injured, so it was a whole scene to get him to a vet, have him examined, have the surgery done, have someone foster him, and then get him adopted. But thankfully for him, his name was Jamie, as in Jamie from Game of Thrones, before he lost
Oh, gee.
his right front paw.
Oh, gee. Oh, jeez.
That just turned out perfectly for him, and I know that is not the usual case, especially with cats or animals with special needs. So when you decided, okay, let me try and make a difference and try to help in any way I can, and you approached the TTSPCA, tell us about what that process was like. And because if people are listening and they would like to foster, what do they need to know?
So my process, it was a very simple, smooth process. I reached out to TSPCA. Someone got in contact with me that very same day. They just asked me a couple of questions, a history of experience. Have you ever dealt with cats? You ever had, a cat as a pet? Just to kind of get some feedback from you and know that if you are the right candidate for fostering. And from there, I went into the shelter and they actually chose for me, or said to me rather, which were the cats or the kittens that needed a bit more TLC, a little more love than the others. And from there, I just started bringing them home, found homes for the ones that I had. And as fast as I found a home for one, I would reach back out to TSPCA and say, hey, do you have another one for me to foster? It really was a joyful experience and kind of got addicted to it. So as fast as one found a home, I'd ask them, did they need any help with any other kittens, cats to foster for a bit? And it's a very, very smooth and simple process, I'd say.
Okay. Did they require a home visit as well? A home check?
Not with me. To be honest, I'm not sure if that's the case with other fosterers. I know they do thorough checks and screenings of individuals, but in terms of a home check, I would like to think that they do. I think with me, it was just my experience and owning cats and dogs that they were comfortable, just taking me on as a foster.
Right. And is there any kind of remuneration? I know that taking care of cats that you own is one thing, but the additional expense of fostering, do they assist with that in any way?
Oh yes, absolutely. So usually before you foster a kitten or cat, they've already been checked out by their vet. They've been dewormed. They handle all the vaccines for them. So if it is I take home a kitten or cat, I've had it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they're due for the next shot, I simply just bring them back to the shelter. They arrange the rest of their vaccines. They provide you with litter as well. So some litter, some cat or kitten chow if you don't have. Things like a litter box, litter scoop, some toys, anything that they can to assist fosters. They do their best at that, I must say.
Is there any major issue with regard to animal welfare that concerns you in Trinidad and Tobago?
One major issue I would say is with regards to animal abuse, animal neglect. I've seen so many cases of that. I've heard so many stories from other persons. And I know that we are all aware, I'd like to say, of the recent increase in the penalties for persons caught being cruel to animals. I believe that's $100,000 fine and up to 1 year imprisonment. And that's a great start for us, and I kind of just want to say to those listening that, if you see someone committing this act, whether it be a friend, a neighbor, even a family member, to please speak up and make a report. I know there's that saying that animals can't speak for themselves, but we can lend them, our voice. So I think that's really important. There are other concerns that I have, but major concern would be the number of cases of animal abuse.
Yep. And unfortunately, while, yes, it is a progressive move to have legislation in place to deal with this, the enforcement of that law is unfortunately inadequate. I have my own personal experience with that. Incidentally, I spoke to someone else this week who had an issue with her neighbor pepper spraying her dogs, just for fun. And she reports it to the police, and the police don't do anything.
Nothing was being, yes, absolutely. I've heard too many stories of that, and that's definitely something that needs to be seen about. It's heartbreaking to know that we have this law and nothing is being done at the end of the day. Too many cases I've seen.
What would you suggest to improve that level of awareness and consciousness about the rights of animals?
I would say my number one thing is education. Even from young, take the time to teach your kids, your friends, your colleagues about our animals, and the importance of treating them with kindness and respect. I'm sure there's some type of program that we can implement, whether it's in schools, or something can be done, about it. We all need to do a little more, not just as a community, but individuals as well. There's a lot that we can do, but it's just to get that courage to, go out and speak. I know there are people who want to talk about this topic, but some of them don't, they need that little extra push just to really go out and speak your voice on this topic.
Yes, that is all too true. And I know that all too well because trying to get people to speak to me on this podcast has been a challenge, surprisingly enough. And the thing is, I know how many people out there are doing the work. They just, for whatever reason, they prefer to just do their work in silence kind of thing. But I agree with you that education is very important to changing people's attitudes and behaviors